thank you all for having me. It's a real treat to be here and transition from the garden to discussion to mental health. I really appreciate those Bible passages because I think it really just speaks to this idea that mental health is something we all have, and it's been around for a really long time. And just lately, it's kind of caught on a little bit more. It's something we talk about more, which I'm really grateful for as a counselor. So, as Stuart said, I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor here in the state of North Carolina, and I've been doing this work for a very long time, over 20 years. And I thought when talking about it and just kind of giving us something to think about, it makes sense to maybe focus a little bit on depression and anxiety, because those are two things I hear about a lot in my work right now. And I have a private practice that I'm also working at All Souls Counseling Center. So I brought some pamphlets up. Anybody familiar with All Souls? Oh, they do such good work. It's a great nonprofit. We're in Asheville, providing counseling to people that kind of are in the gap and missing either maybe they don't have insurance or the mental health benefits in insurance are just too high to afford. So it's a great resource. And when we think about mental health, it really goes on a continuum. You know, we can have moments in our lives when things are going really well and we're thriving and we just kind of feel like we can conquer things and achieve things, and that can go down the continuum to struggling, and maybe we have hard moments, but we can kind of fight through those, all the way down to a crisis. And when we think about a crisis, these are times that things just feel kind of dark and overwhelming. Maybe we feel like we've got things on our plates that are more than we can handle. And so those are things we want to think about. It's like in those times, how do we recognize some of those signs, and then what do we do about it? So that's what we're going to try and talk about. I'm curious, when you all think about myths of mental health or stigmas that are out there, any common ones, something that you've heard or that get kind of shared around? We know they're not true, but any common ones? Yes.
Everybody has problems, you know.
Yes, really, like, come on, we've all got things that we have to deal with. You'll be fine, get over it. Yes, we're going to talk about how to handle it differently than that when we get to the tips and tricks. But yeah, kind of downplaying that. Any others that you've heard before?
Suck it up.
Suck it up, Buttercup. Yeah, it's really easy to kind of downplay things, especially in this day and age. There's just a lot of stressful things going on in the world, and our community. I mean, our community, we've lived through a lot in the past year and a half, right? And so, gosh, we all have things that we're dealing with, and so it can be just easy to kind of downplay what other people are dealing with. So those are great examples. When we think about the stigmas that can go with mental health, what's so hard about them is that they cause us to isolate. You know, I don't know if you've ever been in that place where you're like, oh, I have a lot going on that I don't want to share with anybody else because I know they have a lot going on. And we end up just kind of keeping it to ourselves. And the more we do that, it's just easy to get, to feel a lot of shame about what's happening. So we're going to work on doing the opposite of that, which is connecting. So we'll get to that. I have some handouts. Is that something, are you pass this out for me? Excellent. Thank you for your help. So let's start with talking about depression. And depression is more than just sadness. I mean, it can start as sadness. You might notice that you're tearful, but it's more like all-consuming. It's there all the time. You might have moments, a person might have moments of kind of picking their head up. But for the most time, I heard somebody to describe it today that they feel like they're wearing sunglasses. You know, like the colors are just kind of muted in your day-to-day experience. But depression can be sneaky, especially in younger people. If you're in a world that you touch base with teenagers or young adults at all, sometimes depression can look like irritability. And you're like, what has gotten into them? Well, it could be a variety of things, but one of them could be depression. So it's this deep level of exhaustion and kind of pain. Again, it's almost like you feel like you're in a hole and you just can't figure out how to get out of it. So what are some signs? And this is in the handout, that first page there. We've got some signs that some emotional signs to look for. So persistent sadness and emptiness, hopelessness, just feeling like it's more than a tough time. You're just not sure when it's gonna end, and like it's hard to see out past the horizon. Irritability, which we said, and a loss of interest in things that you used to enjoy. So maybe you used to like gardening, and now, even though it's starting to get warmer, you're just not excited about it. So those are signs that you can look for. On the physical and the behavioral signs, having really low energy. I was noticing that the other day for myself. I thought every day at 4 o'clock, I just feel done. Are you sure it's not 5 yet? Sleeping too much or too little. It's like you go to bed really early and it's just, you can sleep right through an alarm, not having much energy to get up. Sometimes it can be the reverse where, you wake up in the middle of the night with some worry, which we'll talk about anxiety next, but that worry can just, once it gets going and your brain gets spinning, it can be hard to fall back to sleep again. Changes in appetite. Whatever is normal for you in terms of meals that you've been eating, to all of a sudden just not feel that hungry anymore. Again, it's like all the things that you used to find enjoyable just kind of shrink. Withdrawing from others. So that's that isolation we were talking about. It can lead to so much shame. It's kind of thinking like, oh, well, maybe my problems aren't that big of a deal, or I don't want to be a burden to anybody, and so really pulling away. And you can see how this could almost kind of like create its own downward spiral. The more you feel this and the longer you stay in bed, the crummier you kind of end up feeling. Anything else you all would add to the list about things you notice about depression or sadness that you've seen?
Difficulty concentrating. You have that on there.
Yes. So it can be really hard to concentrate because again, it's like there's all these other heavy things going on. So trying to bring your focus back to something like work can be so hard. Yeah.
Looking at some of the signs you just mentioned, being confusing at times and trying to look at another person, because some of these characteristics may not be a sign of depression. It may be other things, so sometimes you really don't know what's going on with that individual because it can be a little bit confusing. At least it is to me.
Yeah. No, you're right. Just because somebody is irritable that day, it's like, well, wait a minute, what? Are they depressed or did they just have a bad day? So that curiosity piece, though, we're going to hang on to that, and because that, when we get to our tips and tricks, that's such a good one to have when we go into conversations of support with people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be hard to know, especially if people aren't sharing a lot. It leaves you wondering about what is going. Maybe you haven't seen the person around a lot, or that something big happened in their life, but maybe they don't come to church anymore, and you kind of are wondering, well, what is going on with them? So I think that's a fair point. Well, okay, let's add on. Let's add on and talk about anxiety. Then we'll get to the positive stuff, I promise. So anxiety, I feel like this is a word we use a lot these days, anxious, it's like full of worry. But I think what really makes this version of anxiety different is it's our nervous system being stuck in overdrive. So if you've heard of fight, flight, or freeze, that's our brain. When we get stressed by something, we go into this survival mode. And that survival mode was so helpful a very long time ago when we had to actually survive. Right? You'd be collecting hunter-gatherer mode, and you hear a twig break, and you would snap up and try and assess your surroundings. Well, we don't need to do that anymore because we have grocery stores and things. But that survival instinct has stuck around. And nowadays, things that can trigger us, they're different for each of us. You and I could be involved in the same car accident or hurricane, and we're going to walk out of it with very different experiences. Something that might be triggering for one person, it doesn't faze another person at all. But when we get that stressful trigger and our body goes into fight, flight, or freeze, That's what we're talking about, is kind of being stuck there. It's like our wiring has just gotten a little bit crossed in that moment. So how does it show up? A constant fear or dread, just worry that something bad is gonna happen. Racing thoughts, it's hard to slow them down because you're just from one catastrophe to the next. Feeling on edge, and again, not sure what the next step or what the future holds. And I think about the hurricane because it was something that the whole community went through. And I don't know about you all, but for me, when the wind blows now,
Yes.
right? And I know there's lots of different things for different people, but for me, when the wind blows, I could just feel it, my whole body. It's like my brain is left behind, my body takes over. And so that's what we're kind of talking about, is that, it's just, that starts my brain going with, what's coming next? Physical signs of anxiety, because sometimes we don't know. Like I might not have been aware that while we were in here, the wind picked up, but I'll notice that all of a sudden my chest feels really tight, or your heartbeat increases. Maybe some people, it shows up in a stomach ache. I'll get a pit in my stomach sometimes if I'm really nervous about something. Or a headache, trouble sleeping. Those are all signs that something's maybe kind of nagging at you. And then behavioral signs, like, so how does it show up if you are trying to pay attention to your friends and neighbors and family members? Well, you might find them avoiding situations. So maybe if there's a stressful situation, they don't come to it. If there's a lot of people nowadays are really nervous in social situations. So they might not want to come to an evening like tonight where they have to see people and talk to people. It could show up as perfectionism. I gotta do everything right. If I don't do it right, then things are gonna fall apart. There's that irritability again, which makes it extra confusing because it's on both categories. And then difficulty making decisions. So being kind of stuck in between and overthinking things, or trying to, I'm just not certain, what do I do here? How do I move forward? So it can present initially as, anger, or maybe like laziness, or even distance. Can actually be a struggle for somebody. Other things you all would add to the list under anxiety that you've seen, experienced, heard about, we haven't named?
Doing drugs.
Yes, doing drugs, like looking for some kind of outlet to turn things off. That's how I think about it, is like with substances, they can be really good at numbing things and help. We think we're avoiding the tough subject by doing the drugs. We're probably making other problems along the way, but that's a great one, yeah. Anybody else? All right, well, so maybe you're thinking now, because the idea is you want to just increase your awareness, because again, this could be anywhere, right? It could be your friends, it could be family members. You might even be like, I'm seeing this in myself a little bit. So if you turn the page over, let's talk about how to be helpful. So you don't have to fix it in order to be helpful. I think that's such an important point to remind ourselves. As a parent, I'm a fixer. It's not always a good quality, but if my kids have a problem, I just want to jump in there and fix it so they don't have to hurt. And I think sometimes with mental health, we get in a similar place of like, our friend is hurting or somebody in our family is struggling, and we just want to be like, wait, what's causing the stress? Is it money? We'll do a fundraiser, whatever it might be. And we don't have to fix it. There's this idea of connection. It can actually be part of the fix. So, what can help? Listening more than you talk. That one is really hard. I don't know, you have one of those friends where it's like you start to tell them like, oh, I had such a hard day, and they step in and they say, no, let me tell you about my day. You're like, okay, that's cool. But you don't even get to finish what you were saying because somebody else wants, they grab the mic moments. When we're in this situation though, where somebody is sharing with us or we suspect that something's going on, it's a really good time to listen to what's happening for them. So here's a tip. I'm really glad you told me. It's so simple, but that's all it takes for them to feel like, oh, I've been seen, and there's such value in that. You can validate what they're saying. That sounds really hard. Now this part can get tricky because, again, I feel like this happens a lot in my role as the parent, but we can validate somebody's experience without fully agreeing with it. So we could be listening and maybe their car broke down today and they've had a hard day. Well, I might not think it was that hard of the day. You just take it to the mechanic and you get it looked at. But I'm going to leave that aside, and I want to try and validate and acknowledge, like, yeah, that sounds like it was a really hard day, right? Doesn't that feel better? If you're the person that had the car breakdown today, that's more of what you want somebody to say is like, oh, that does just sound really hard. It doesn't mean that we have to agree on it. It just means that we're being present with them. How can I support you right now? That's a great question to ask because sometimes people, well, you all probably know, sometimes people don't know what they need. I'm guessing around here you guys probably do meal trains and stuff, right? If somebody's been in the hospital or you guys probably just rally around action. And that's so beautiful because when somebody is hurting, they don't always know what they need. But it can be nice to ask, like what would feel supportive? Do you want me to just sit and listen? Do you want to problem solve? They might love your ideas. They also might not love to hear ideas right now. They might just need a listening ear. And I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier about it can be so confusing, trying to understand what's happening with somebody. So these, being able to make space for it. And I think one of the ways we make space is by slowing things down and asking those questions. So you can also encourage professional help if you're hearing kind of like, oh, this sounds like a trend, or like, wait, how many days did you not get out of bed? Or, oh gosh, you're struggling at work too. You're starting to hear things that you're like, oh, this sounds like a lot, more than our coffee date is really gonna address. There are other support systems out there for people. So you could recommend professional help. Like seeing a therapist, somebody at All Souls. A lot of times nowadays, if somebody has insurance, then if you can find a therapist that's in network. So there could be stigmas around getting help and talking to a therapist, but it's kind of nice too to have somebody that for that whole 50 minutes is your person to listen and brainstorm with you. This is probably a good time to say a word too about the role of medication, because medication, it can be helpful. So if you know somebody that is on it or looking to go on it, there's lots of opinions out there about medication. And I would encourage curiosity, because again, if somebody's really struggling, that might be the thing that helps them. And somebody told me once, they gave me this analogy. If you think of depression as a hole that a person is stuck inside, medication can be the ladder, right? So it doesn't do the work for you. If you are given a ladder, you're still gonna have to climb up out of that hole, but it's a resource for you. So it doesn't have to be forever, but it can be something that's really helpful. And sometimes primary doctors are willing to prescribe. The fancy term would be psychotropic medications, things that address depression and anxiety. So sometimes they will, sometimes they might want you to see a psychiatrist because those people have, it is their business to know all the different effects and impacts. But just want to name that as a resource too. And the last bullet point on there is talking about staying connected. So small check-ins matter, You've ever been on your birthday, if you get a card in the mail these days, I feel like that's so rare, right? But that is the best. I love getting mail. Just brightens my whole day. So small check-ins are the same kind of thing, right? You know, just sending somebody a text like, oh, thinking about you today, you know. I know you're going through a lot right now. I'm here if you need anything. Okay, what else? What else helps? What else are you all noticing you find yourself doing to help support people?
Just a thought, it appears sometimes those who are experiencing anxiety or depression, they find a way to hide that
Mm-hmm.
and conceal that. So some things we're talking about, try to engage in the conversation, trying to figure out those little things they might do or say that will pull that out. They're not going to probably say, I'm experiencing this. So it's really, some people I've known, they really conceal that.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons, I'm sure. But, so it's a challenge sometimes to sort of, okay, are they really having some difficulty or just having a bad day? Is it deeper than that?
Mm-hmm. I agree with you that there could be lots of reasons why somebody wouldn't share that, like, okay, I made it here today, but you guys don't even know what the struggle was for me to get here, right? And I don't want to tell you all because that's embarrassing. I think it goes to the, kind of that shame piece. And so part of what we've been doing tonight and having this as a topic is addressing that, right? And putting it out in the open, which is amazing. And then the other thing I think to think about is that we don't always have to like get in there, you know, and figure out like, wait, are you depressed? Are you anxious? Even just having the connection points, you know, can be so helpful. You know, because if I'm secretly struggling, but somebody comes up to me and says, oh, it's so nice to see you today. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. They don't even know it, but I needed that, you know? That's great. What other pieces that you all are doing or seeing? Yeah.
To me, being outside and exercising, it's not just about weight loss or having a healthy heart. It's about, for me, my mental health, being outside and seeing sunshine and breathing in and on a hike. And I read all about people forest bathing now or just sitting on grass, and I'm like, that's what makes me happy all the time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I appreciate you saying that. That's actually one of the common treatments for depression is like getting out and moving. And you can think about it, it's so hard. You know, even if you've never felt like depressed, even if you think about like if you've had a sad day, it's like the last thing you want to do is go outside or go to the gym or any of those things, but that actually helps. When we go outside, we're shifting our cognitive focus from oftentimes nowadays our screens to looking up at the trees and the clouds. It gives our brain a chance to kind of catalog all the stuff that we've been dealing with. So going on a walk, you're outside and you're also getting, very fancy, bilateral stimulation, two-sided movement. When we do that, that tells our brains, you know, we're talking about fight, flight, or freeze stuff, that tells our brains that we're safe. Even if you're running, you're running at a regulated pace, right? You're not like sprinting away from the scary thing. You're walking, you're running. So, such a good point. Yeah.
Is providing food to people something that would be helpful?
I think so, especially because, I mean, you're, the act of thinking about them, you're thinking about them enough that you're bringing them a meal. And it kind of speaks to community. It lets them know that they're not alone. I think that's a great idea. And you could also ask them. You could say, hey, thinking about making a double batch of lasagna. Would that be helpful? Or, you know, like what would help? I'd love to come see you. Would anything feel extra supportive right now? Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes those of us of faith, we detect something, we'll say, oh, we'll be praying for you. I'm not sure how deeply that goes to that person. Yes, we'll pray for them, but maybe there's something else we have to do besides maybe put some legs to that. But that's an easy thing for us to say, and we mean it. I will pray for you, but it may not sink into that person that somebody really cares about me and I need help right now.
Yeah. I think it's fair. I think both of those things are, hold power. The idea of somebody praying for me, it means like, I know that you're holding me in your heart, and that's so special. And if I'm struggling with basic needs, then you're right, I might need some actual additional assistance in some way. Mm-hmm.
If we say we'll pray, we mean that, and it's important. But,
Yeah. Yeah. Are you raising your hand?
No.
Okay, just checking. Okay, so just to cover it, what hurts? What do we not want to be doing? You guys covered this at the beginning when we talked about stigmas. We don't want to minimize. Because again, what might seem kind of trivial to us could be their whole day and could be really hard for them. So, everybody feels that way. Oh, you'll get over it. That doesn't, that's like the opposite of being seen. That's being unseen. So, not helpful. Comparing, the friends that grab the mic and say, well, I'll tell you about my day. Even if it's true, maybe your day was harder in that moment. Just kind of letting them have their moment and knowing that like we see what is happening. Quick fixes and advice too soon. Again, I'm a fixer and I have a lot of advice. I have to really watch myself though, because if somebody starts to really trust you and open up and start sharing, and you jump in with like, oh, have you called so-and-so, or what about this? It just can kind of, if you think about this as like the faucet is flowing, information's coming, you're like, oh, this is so great, I'm hearing more, and you start trying to fix it, they might just turn that faucet right off and be like, no point in sharing with you anymore because, you're just going right to the answer. And that might not be the best answer for them. Suggesting it's just a lack of faith or a lack of effort. That would be so hurtful, right? Just to say like, well, I didn't see you last week, so I know what's happening. I know why this is happening now. You all would never do that, I'm sure. But it's so it's just tempting. It's sometimes accidental that we fall into these things. So part of this is just like, okay, let's be aware, and how do we really show up for our friends and neighbors? Okay, so these are all things we can do to be helpful. We've talked about some resources that we can recommend to people. When to seek immediate help. If somebody is talking about wanting to die, that is really serious, and we always want to take it seriously. Hopelessness about the future, giving away possessions, comments about people would be better off without me. Those are pretty big deals. You want to take it seriously. And I think a lot of another myth is that if that's happening, we should change the subject because I don't want to talk about it because I'll make it worse. That's not true. This person is already feeling really down and struggling, and they really probably want to be talking about it. So it's okay to go ahead and ask about it. And nowadays, the 988 number is the suicide and crisis line. And so they can call that number, you could call that number with them. Wanting to connect them with support right away so that they feel like they've got kind of, a lifeline right then. Let me think what else I want to say about that. Yeah, I think it's about getting support for them as soon as you can in those moments. And if we've been talking, all of these things could be happening with people we know or that we're in community with, but it also could be happening to ourselves, and so you might, again, recognize some of these things and think, oh, that might be. I was looking over the list today and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I've been procrastinating a lot lately. What is happening with me right now? So if you realize that could be you, that's okay too. You're not alone. And you might want to get some support too, whether that's therapy or talking with somebody. Sometimes like we talk about getting outside and going for a walk, Thankfully, the spring weather is coming, I'm sure. So getting outside a little bit more, sometimes those things can be enough to kind of kickstart us a little bit. But ultimately, seeking, looking for help and reaching out, it's not a weakness, it's actually a real big strength. And what role models we are when we do that and take care of ourselves and our own mental health, especially for kind of the younger generations. And they look up to us and, wait, you have a therapist? Wow, that's amazing. All right, we've covered all the bullet points. I'd love to know questions, comments, other things you all want to add to this?
My family, we had a family member commit suicide. And I think this feeling comes along with a lot of people. This person had some health issues. And what they began to feel was, I'm a burden to everybody else. The best solution to this is for me to remove myself. Now, didn't think it was that serious. Now you look back on it, it was a clear message to say, I don't want to be here anymore. So feeling a burden on other people causes people to do a lot of stuff that's not good.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, I think it can be one of those red flags when we hear that, because really it's not a burden, right? I mean, so often we want to be in relationship with people and, I might have a very full life and schedule, but I'm gonna throw the microphone around. I'm gonna make room for people that are struggling. I'm gonna make room and offer that connection that I can. So, yeah.
Do you have any tips for maybe when you're dealing with a significantly younger generation?
Yes. Maybe say more about that because I have, yes, but in which kind of a way?
They may feel like I don't understand, or I might. It would be more helpful for me to find somebody in their.
Okay.
Would it be helpful for me to find somebody else that's more closely in age, or?
Got it, yes. So when there's like a generation gap maybe, and younger people, what do we do? How do we connect with them? It's such a great question. Well, I think we still have a lot to offer, even when there's a really big age difference. And I'm now at the age where I don't like their music. That's how I know I'm old. So when we get to that age, the best thing I think that we can do is to ask curious questions and make the effort to connect. So I wouldn't rule yourself out. I would still think okay, this is a young person and I want to be there for them. I'm really curious about what their experience is like. And I work with a lot of younger people, and then I have my own kids. And given questions without an agenda, I find them to be happy to have an audience, and happy to talk about things. Now, will they still kind of guard and keep some of their bigger depression, anxiety stuff? They might, but this maybe in the 20s and younger, I think this generation is actually really used to talking about mental health. They talk about it way more than even people, my age have. So, yeah, I would say just get in there and start asking questions.
Have we created in society a little bit of isolation? We came through COVID. It's easy now to work from home, be by yourself in your home, do it remotely for school. We don't have as much contact with other people around us, and we need that as humans. Could that be a cause of some of the issues? Because we've created, not intentionally, but created a world of isolation. We go in the room, shut the door, get on the computer.
Yeah.
It's just us. So, to me, it seems like sometimes maybe we've created that, and that isolation has caused some things to happen.
Mm-hmm. There is a great book out right now, The Anxious Generation. James H. He does a lot of research. He pulls together research about kind of the rise of screens and how that's affecting our current generations of kids. And I think it's really informative, especially, if you're around young people, whether that's your own kids or grandkids or kids in the community, and you talk about a disconnect. It's like, how do I get their attention? They're holding their phone the whole time, So it's like, okay, I think that's a really great way to start bridging the gap, because I think you're right, there's a lot of, there's probably a lot of causes with it, but yes, the way things are right now, it certainly has created this, very alone space. I mean, again, I talk to a lot of young adults that they want friends, but they're not really sure how to do it. Some of the ways that we might think of like, well, find an activity you like and go. It's like, oh, talk to people? Yikes.
Thank you.
What else? Well, I appreciate being here and being able to talk about this with you all. And hopefully it gives you some ideas and some things to pay attention to, and some ideas like that you feel like you've got some concrete action items you could do too. I've got some of the flyers I'll leave up with you guys for about All Souls, but yeah, I appreciate that you guys, it sounds like the whole series is looking at different ways to expand love, and this is such a great one of those. So, yeah. That's about it.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.